as well. Welcome.
Good morning. I know it's a good morning because I'm here with you. And for some of us, it might not be a great morning, so we can remember it's a God morning. And we're going to explore that as we share together this morning what we mean by that, right? It's been 6 years since I've been here at Unity Church of Rochester. So I just want to acknowledge that I've missed you, and of course I hear about all of us, as we all do, and have mutual friends and share, and I'm fully in my mama heart as I think of it this morning as we explore nothing can disturb the calm peace of my soul. And for those of you that are parents, you know that there are lots of things that can disturb you. But this morning at 8 a.m., my husband Matthew and I, that you also know, we were outside in the driveway, and we were putting love on our son Isaac's car. He and his partner and his now wife Jenna were returning home to Minneapolis, and was writing on the back of their car with soap and newlyweds and all good things. So you can imagine that I can have this experience of feeling fully in my mama heart, right? But I also know that which I call my God heart. And I hope that you're exploring what that means, and together we can explore what I'm talking about today together. Because it's coming from that awareness that nothing can disturb the calm peace of my soul. And I miss my kids. Oh my gosh, we gave them roots and we gave them wings, and they flapped those wings and they now live out of state. So, it's just a whole nother trip being a parent. And I'm grateful to get to be a parent. So I'm grateful to share some of that with you. I know our dear friend Joyce Dimmick, a member of this ministry, is probably here in the Zoom room. Hey everybody that's out there that's joined us this morning in the Zoom room. For those of you that come along later and watch this later in the week, I just know that as an adopted grandma, you're going to be a little more privy to some of the sharing that I have today that has to do with our son and his marriage recently. But I looked up that quote, "Nothing can disturb the calm peace of my soul." And I thought it was biblical. I had heard it originally probably in some of the writings from some of those folks in Unity way back. One of them for sure, May Rowland, who was the director of Silent Unity, this worldwide prayer ministry that she headed up once upon a time. You might be surprised to find out that these are the words, actually they're attributed to Jiddu Krishnamurti. And it just gave evidence again that in our unity movement, we have always asked ourselves to honor the spiritual wisdom that comes through the streams of consciousness in the faith traditions, the world's religions, and more than religions, but what comes through the great writers and those that have walked before us, the ancients. That this truth, nothing can disturb the calm peace of my soul, comes to us this morning because there are others that have walked the path of life and have come to know this truth, and have come to live it, and have come to demonstrate it. So as we share today, I ask you right now, is there something that is disturbable in your life? Is there something that you could say, yes, if I turn on the news today, I will feel disturbed? If I look to find out with the doctors what's going on in my body, I'm going to feel disturbed if they give me a certain kind of news. Perhaps if you look at your bank account today, you're going to say, I feel a little disturbed at what's in that bank account or what's not in that bank account, right? So we all can admit that there are these experiences that we have where we are disturbed. And when I think about my son and his wedding, and then going off to the honeymoon in this last week with hurricane, with war, I can tell you that there was a moment there where I felt disturbed. What's the flight path home? I wanted to know that flight path. I wanted to get a message to them. I wanted to know if they knew the flight path. I wanted them on American soil. American soil, my friends, is no safer than any other soil. But it is that kind of attitude and perception that we hold as a country, that somehow we are safer here when we're at home. But the great teacher Thich Nhat Hanh, who gave us so much to contemplate from Zen Buddhism, the seeds of peace and the seeds of war exist in every single one of us. And we water those seeds by what we give attention to. So we can tell ourselves that in fact we are in a mindset that can be disturbable. But what are the great teachers trying to tell us about that which cannot be disturbed? Nothing can disturb the calm peace of my soul. I look to a quote that many of us are also familiar with that comes to us from the Gospels. Let not your heart be troubled. Let not your heart be troubled. Now these words are attributed to the man Jesus. These are the words that are being spoken to the disciples. The disciples are students. They are students of that which they have claimed in their midst, their rabbi, their teacher, right? And he is speaking to them because he is living in troubled times, and they are living in troubled times. And there are wars, and there are those within his own people, his family members, potentials, cousins, aunts, maybe even uncles that are entertaining the thought of overthrowing the government. This is not foreign to us on our own soil. Perhaps it has always been this way, that we have known that within our family members, within our country, men and women, dissatisfaction and wanting to overthrow governments. So we do not have to be offended somehow in our righteousness about this, but we've got to pay attention, because the seeds are always within us for this. And in Jesus' time, they were very strong. He was within his own religion in a time of great oppression, religious rigidity, I call it. This is not foreign to us in our time, is it? Isn't it the religious rigidity that's going on this planet that has created wars? That we are watching this, that we have to own this soil, whether it's Israel or Iran or any other country that is saying this. To be religiously true to ourselves and true to our own kingdom, we have to have this soil and own it. This is what we are facing. This is what we are asking ourselves to navigate through. How do we do that? Jesus, from his very human heart, is saying, let not your heart be troubled. Let not your heart be troubled. So this morning, I could be drawn out. My mama heart could be drawn out like Moses was drawn out of the waters. And our hearts can be drawn out of the troubled waters, that we also can know a peace that surpasses all understanding. We don't have to understand it. We don't have to logically figure it out. We just have to remember there is that is at work. So Jesus, in speaking to these disciples, these friends, family members actually, do you know that in your studies? These are family members that are in his midst. Let not your heart be troubled. And if you believe in God and you believe in me. So troubles may be what we most often have to learn to navigate through, troubles of the heart. But the disciples, maybe like us, are saying, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to do that. I've tried psychotherapy. I've tried it all. I've got the best books. I've got the best circles. And yet our heart can be troubled. But instead of trying to control the heart, we might listen to the words and the great wisdom that is in this man Jesus. We call this in Unity the Christ awareness. We weren't the ones to label that. But there is an awareness that is being lived by this man, this great teacher, that we can tune into. And whether we call it the Christ self or the Buddha self or the Atman, that which is spiritually can never be separate from that which we call God. And it is this awareness coming through this consciousness that helps us navigate. And so what does Jesus say? Well, follow me. I am the way and the truth and the life. Great. Where are you going? The next question. Where are you going? I am going to my Father's house. In my Father's house there are many rooms. Now this is where we can really tune in today, because so often I believe we have missed some of the nuances of this Christ awareness coming through to the disciples. What is the Father's house? First of all, let's recognize that. Think about your own father living in a house. Hopefully all of us had an experience like that, where we were in the home of our Father. Is not the house bigger than the earthly father? Is it not? Yeah. That house is bigger. In my Father's house, the Christ awareness is conveying to us, there is that which we call God, often called Father, as Jesus did, Abba, Papa, endearing words. And yet this Father has a house, and the house is greater than the Father. And it is this that I want us to tune into today. It's going to help me today, no matter where my kids are out on the freeways, what storms come up. Sometimes they've been in snowstorms. They won't today, I'm so grateful to say. They've had to pull over in snowstorms. I want you to know that as much as they were prepared in that wedding, and they were prepared and had their itinerary for today, there will be things that are unexpected. I went to their wedding rehearsal 4 times. They rehearsed that wedding ceremony 4 times. And right before the wedding itself, my son's pants tore out. They were not prepared for that, friends. They did not have a sewing kit with them. They did not have a stapler, as I have done in days. But they were in one way. Because when we watched them and they shared their vows, their love for each other was unshakable. Their love was the house that they were in, and it didn't matter if there were minks running around in the background. It didn't matter if there were estranged family members showing up. It was their love, and that's all they had their attention on. And for me today as a parent, when I think about what might happen in today's mystery, right? How much mystery is ahead of us today? How much unknown are we facing today? How many times will we be tempted to fear today? How much troubling of the waters will we know today? And yet, nothing can disturb the calm peace of the soul, because there is that which is like a house that we live in. Just as Father, Mother, God is in something greater. What is Jesus trying to convey to those that are before him shortly before his body is to be crucified? Shortly before he will go before and in and through the death experience. Let me read to you a little bit from the Aramaic. This is taking the word Father, which comes to us from the Aramaic literature. And you may not know that, but there is an Aramaic translation of the Bible, and that Jesus' first language was probably Aramaic. He was probably multilingual. He was speaking, obviously, Hebrew. We have the impressions that he clearly knew Latin. So there was so much about this man and his ability, as people in other countries speak multiple languages. Maybe not so much here in the U.S. yet. But when we go into the Lord's Prayer, our Father, this translates according to Neil Douglas Klotz's Meditations on the Aramaic Words of Jesus. O birther, Father, Mother of the cosmos, you create all that moves. Another way of understanding Father, O thou, the breathing life of all. Radiant One, you shine within us. Source of all vibration and that which manifests and is manifesting. Now we're looking at more of a creative reality that we live in. Look around, friends. Has anything stayed the same truly in this room since I was 6 years ago? Has anything stayed the same in your life in 6 years? Come on, let's try it out. Anything that has stayed exactly the same? We live in a creative universe, don't we? We live in a creative reality. This is what helps us when we feel like nothing will change. This is what helps us when we think, I will never overcome. This is what helps us get out of bed in the morning when we are facing the impossible in the unknowns ahead of us. This is what helps us when we see the news that the earth is suffering right now because we humans have not yet evolved the way of working together with creative ideas, but we are in the midst of it, right? So we live in the creative house in the source of all, that is that which we call God. This gives us hope. This spurs our faith and quickens it. That this ministry that has changed in the 6 years since I was here and will continue to change. But this ministry has within its midst, not only in you, but all around you, the creative possibility and potential. So when the disciples are saying, well, what is the Father? Jesus' response, at least as it is attributed in these words we find in the Bible that have gone through so many translations. He says, basically, haven't I been with you long enough for you to know the Father that is in me, and I am in the Father? So let's ask ourselves to explore this now. That which is the creative reality is in me, and we are in it. It is in us, and we are in it. But even more than that, there is source. I call it often thou of no names. There is source that is not disturbable. That it is like the still small voice. It is the peace that is unchanging. What is that? I bring you some words in my studies from the sacred anthology, Sacred Poetry and Prose, from a book called God Makes the Rivers to Flow, filled with writings from all these different faith traditions. This particular reading is one from the Buddhist scripture. For those struggling in midstream, in great fear of the flood, of growing old, of dying, for all those I say, an island exists where there is no place for impediments and no place for clinging. The island of no going beyond. I call it nirvana, the complete destruction of old age and dying. That we live almost like an island, kingdom of heaven, Jesus called it. We live with this that is indestructible. It's the source, and it is quiet. In the Gospel according to Thomas, which are found in these writings not until the 1940s, so the translations have not skewed them too much so far, right? In these writings, it is said that to understand God, that God is a movement and a rest. And I've always appreciated this, because the movement is the great creative principle. It is happening through us, not to us. Creativity must happen through us, right? So that which is God must happen through us. But there is a rest. Nothing can disturb the calm peace of my soul. Though my heart is troubled, though the disciples' hearts were troubled, though we will have troubles as we go forward today, there is that nothing can disturb. It is like an island in the great troubled waters of life. So how do we live it then? It is one thing for me to have an understanding. It's another to live it. How about for you? Right? What good is a preacher coming up here and preaching if they cannot put this thing into practice? And this is what we have held up in unity all these years. So I want to explore that with you. You know, at one time on this planet we had saber-toothed tigers. Is that not right? We got the like the big fangs, you know, or whatever they call them to prove it. But today's world, we might be very wary of the saber-toothed tiger. I love this. I heard this recently. We might really want to watch out for the saber-toothed tiger. Why? Because every time we go into the online world, you know, and I access my news there. Okay, I often ask my 20-somethings, you know, how do you get your news nowadays? Well, they're going online. But I want you to know, if you don't have this figured out already, there are professionals. There are really powerfully educated professionals about how to manipulate what I understand. They have no power over me. It's just that I have to understand the saber-toothed tiger is at work. And I need to be wary, and I need to be cautious, and I need to drill down, and I need to know what facts are. Because if I go online and just want to look up something about the weather, I'm going to get opinions about the weather, right? I'm going to get fear messages about the weather. I'm going to find out it might be a category 3 or a category 4. And I have got to practice being in this now moment, in the presence and the potential and the power of peace in my life. So when we deal with perceptions, which is what we're working with, the mind and consciousness, we want to know how to work with it and be able to overcome that which is leading into so much anxiety. There's an amazing book out right now called Unwinding Anxiety by Justin Brewer, who suggests that anxiety is just a habit loop. Anxiety is just a habit loop. Think for a moment. How many of you can identify now that you will have pockets where you feel like you're doing well? And it's almost like, and then comes another something to fear. Oh, now I've got a new something to fear. Notice the cyclical looping of what happens in our mind. This is what one teacher calls ego hiding. Now I look like a tiger. Now I look like a hurricane. Now I look like an empty bank account. Now I look like a bone hurting. Now I look like, somebody honking at me as I'm out on the road. Do you notice? So when we understand that there's a loop going, we ask ourselves how we can do a pattern interrupt. This is really important to us right now, especially. It's always important to us, but for us right now, I would say we are really being pounded with so much right now in our news. Not only the war, but the political gyrations of what's going on leading up to an election. But notice on the field of what's occurring, we've got compassion liberated for people that are going through the storm, the hurricane. Are you hearing stories already? How people are reaching out to each other, right? You're already hearing it. Really innovative ideas. We now have, and you'll soon hear about it as a ministry if you keep track of your email, we've got like about 100 Unity ministries in what we call the Southeast region. And we now know the reports that are coming in, which buildings are damaged. One building has a youth wing completely damaged. But churches are people. And so what we're learning is the people of those ministries and what they are going through, the businesses and what they are going through, right? So we're going to be able to respond in real creative ways. So this compassion that is being drawn out of the troubled waters, I notice this. The timing is impeccable. I would never want anybody to suffer. But we want to move into compassion because the ego loop is, I'm worried about myself. And so when we want to notice how to move out of the ego loop that is very much about suffering and fear and troubled waters and worry eating us up in the middle of the night, then we want to move beyond just thinking about self. This is surely why the great teachings are about love. Christ awareness is there are only 2 commandments: love each other, right? It's all about love. So if we can shift our attention to another, we will begin to realize the liberation coming out, being drawn out. Nothing can disturb the calm peace of my soul. I am working with an infinite source that has every idea that is going to support me to respond to yet another challenge. And if I'm too weary and I've had enough of it all, I will have the ideas that will support me to go into a place and a practice of peace. Okay, so there's no lack in this. For those that are part of the 12-step program, I've often found it interesting that the way that the individual is transformed in their lives to overcome any addiction. We have so many 12-step programs now. We've got the AA, we've got the NA, we've got the SA, we got all these programs, but they're all based on a first step of powerlessness. Admitting that we're powerless, that we're people and places and things, our lives have become unmanageable, right? And then coming to believe in a power greater than ourselves. It's all plural pronouns in there, going into our space and revamping our exercising of our personal sense of power and knowing it for others. So here is a bit of information that I think you'll find fascinating about how we can live this week. There was a study after the Boston Marathon bombing. People watching the news on the bombing had more evidence of PTSD than those present at the actual marathon. So that's curious, isn't that? They came to the conclusion that this was so because the people that were watching it were stewing on it. They were watching images over and over again. You can just imagine how you've done that maybe with the hurricane. You want to know what's going on. Maybe you've had family. Anybody have family members, friends in those states affected? Yeah. I was making phone calls, sending texts. Are they okay? I want to know. I want to know how they're doing. But we were watching. But the people at the Boston Marathon that were going through the experience, they had to get up and act. They had to move into action. They could not sit there and dwell in it and go against our design. Our design is actually to be creative and to move into action, to evolve solutions in our lives that we can thrive. Because if you look at the universe is causing all to thrive, not to die. Even nature here on earth is teaching us these leaves are falling and they are becoming food for life. There is no death, but there is that which is evolving life. So for us to have action this week, I bring to you also some more information that comes from an amazing man I've just been introduced to by my dear friend out in Oregon. Let me pick it up here. And his name, actually, let me get to the right paper. He is he's a really neat guy. Whoops, let me get to the right paper. There we go. I got it. I got to watch that clock too. Dr. Matt Townsend. He is a marriage educator and he is a relationship coach. He teaches getting real. And he has been looking at the neuroscience work, and they have found that if you make 7 seconds of connected, positive presence, that this has a huge, profound influence of feeling connected. This is like moving ourselves into connection. And in the moving of connection, when we bring the positive, when we see the strength in another, when we really show up and we say, I'm with you in this, whatever your words are. If you're a worker and you're working with a co-worker and they're going through hell and back and they're just really making life miserable at work, you can find ways to give to that person just by being present. You can do it in the grocery store. 7 seconds. 7 seconds of presence and positivity. This man says has just teaching that tool has turned marriages around. They didn't have to go in the past. They didn't have to dig up all those skeletons in the closet. They just learned to really show up and connect. So friends, as we go forward, nothing can disturb the calm peace of the soul, because this is the truth of God in us. And as we live it, as we let the creative principle flow through us, we can go forward this week and share in a simple little practice. 7 seconds of connecting positive presence. Jesus did it. He did it with those that were fearing for his life. He did it through a heart that could speak. Let your hearts not be troubled. I am with you always. And we learn to speak from the heart and be with each other. And let's do that now in meditation, okay? So if you're comfortable doing so, go ahead and close your eyes. And if you're tired today, find a prayerful focus. It could be the light. It could be looking out the window. It could be a candle. But as they teach us in meditation, you can gaze and keep the mind more alert in this meditation. We start first by the awareness of God, that which we call God, O thou of many names and thou of no name. Father, Mother, Beloved, Source. I bring my heart fully and wholly into the now and this relationship that never leaves me. I am surrounded and I am enfolded by the great, indestructible truth. God is my peace. The peace that lives me in a world filled with so much that I have no power and control over. I bring my full heart, whether it is troubled or whether it is steady bring my heart willingly and with faith and trust in a conscious, present way. I rest now in the rest that lives me. I give thanks for this peace that is indestructible, living me. I give thanks for this health that is indestructible, that lives me. I pray that I might be the conscious, positive instrument of peace and love in this world and on this precious earth. And I dedicate this spiritual practice for the betterment of the water and the earth and the air and all living creatures. And in the ancient language of Jesus, Amen. I plant this vision and my intention in the earth that it may grow. And so it is and shall ever be.